I was a bit stuck what to do with this. On the one hand, I had a really good idea of something to do with it, but on the other hand, there's other Firebirds I could do that idea with. And this one, it survived pretty well from the early 80s, and it's got the kind of quite stupid sort of promotional tie-in that I quite like, because it's, I mean, what have Schweppes soft drinks really got to do with toy cars or Pontiac Firebirds? It's a bit absurd, really, but this sort of thing used to be very common back then. But it's the fact that it's a bit absurd. That's why I like it, and that's why I didn't really want to strip this and kill that livery that survived all these years so long. Not in bad condition at all. It's got a few chips here and there, but it's not terrible by any stretch. So I went to my go-to quick fix, which I've done before on previous videos, because these corgi wheels lend themselves really well to being augmented using my my tried and tested little technique of the rubber O-ring, painting around the inside of the rubber O-ring and the wheel itself to make it look like a bigger wheel, and then the heat shrunk sort of tire center just to finish it all off. So I'm just going through that procedure on one wheel. There's another video. There's two other videos that go into this in more detail. So I don't want to overdo it and just be always putting up big long videos that just concentrate on this. But it's part of what's happening with this particular car. So it's worth featuring it as part of the video. But like I say, if you've watched the other videos and you've seen this before, I'm not going to do all four of them. It's not. I'm just showing. Doing one. So yeah, it was that. It was the fact that with it being a Corgi Juniors, I could easily do up the wheels, and I didn't want to, like I said, I didn't want to kill that slightly daft livery. It's a 50 year old. Well, no, it won't be 50, but it's a 40 odd year old casting that survived quite well. And I don't know if you can see them here, but the rivets on this one, they're kind of prominent, they stick out. So that already is a really good, it gives me a really good excuse not to drill it open. I'm not saying it can't be done, it can be done. I have done it on these, and I've also quite literally picked up the pieces when the plastic base plate decides to explode as soon as you go and even think about going anywhere near it with a drill. And if I'm being completely transparent, I just wanted something to cheer me up a little bit. Although cheer me up's a bit of a daft word. It's not like I was distraught or anything. But the Porsche Panamera on the last video said the next video was definitely going to be doing the lights on that, and maybe one or two others. And it would have been. I must have taken about 40 minutes worth of footage of me doing just that, and the lights turned out really well. Not horrible, but they were a bit poor. I didn't really want to certainly didn't turn out well enough for me to want to make a video out of them. So scrapped all the footage and ended up putting the body of the Porsche back into the strip and redoing it in the black chrome. So it's all redone now, but it takes time to cure, etc., etc. So in the meantime, I just thought I'll do this because it wants doing anyway. I want to do something with it. I've already decided that I don't really want to drill it and take it apart and take all the paint off it, but also it'll give me a chance to do a bit of detailing and a bit of doing headlights and things. Alright, there aren't exactly massive headlights on one of these cars, but as you can see, it doesn't really matter how big it is, you've still got to be very careful, and it still takes all the time. So what I've done here, on the real thing, there's like little black, I would say, yeah, like little black grills or infill panels just below where the closed sort of non-popped up headlights sort of meet the bodywork. And then on the inside of those, there's two little orange lights, which I presume, being an American car, there'll be marker lights that are just switched on at night. I doubt there'll be indicators. I mean, there might be. It will have indicators somewhere, and there are marker lights on the sides of the front as well. So actually thinking about it, there could well be turn signals, but whatever they are, I wanted to represent them as the little tiny orange lights that they are. So that's what I'm doing here. So even with details like this, even with tiny details like this, there's a little bit of trial and error. This taking the time to do it like this, I mean, I've got a fairly fine tip silver pen. It's fibre tip. Yeah, you can get the rollerball type that look even finer because they're like a little needle, but the actual tip itself isn't really any finer, and they tend to last about 3 minutes, whereas the fibre tip ones will go the distance. So I'm going to do the black back end of it as well. I mean, a lot of people in the UK think these cars are just completely black at the back. Well, that's probably because of Knight Rider, because on that car it was. But if you look at a real one, it's just a very, very, very heavily tinted rear light unit. You can see the red lights through it just at the end. So, and I'm also going to try and pick out that tiny little Firebird sort of crest that's in the middle there. Now, this is ridiculously fiddly and takes a lot of concentration. This is just the sort of thing that if you try and rush it or do it quickly, you'll end up with just this big silver splodge in the middle, and it'll look worse than if you just left it. I mean, to give Corgi the credit, they did very well in actually getting that on there and picking it out. It's a really nice casting, actually. I mean, Matchbox did their own version of it as well. That was really good. This is really good. They're slightly different. They've got strengths and weaknesses, etc. But they both managed to get that little tiny Firebird thing on the back, which can be picked out, but you've just got to be so careful with it. And what I end up doing here is, it gets picked out, but I've only picked it out quite faintly because it's very hard to get it absolutely perfectly, and picking it out a little bit faintly is a lot better than putting too much on there and just having it there as a big blob. You can see it, but you've got to remember the scale of these things. I've mentioned this before, but it's so small compared to the real thing, and the Firebird badge on the real car is only going to be small because it's only a very small part of the car. So then when you take that car and shrink it down to however many times small this actually is, it's not 64 times small, it doesn't quite work like that, but you're looking at a very tiny little thing there, and I've got to try and get that absolutely accurate with a silver pen, which I've pretty much managed to do. It's just that I haven't got it picked out particularly bold, but I have got it picked out. Like I say, I'd rather it be that than to be too much on there. And then I've put a little bit of silver just on the lights because I want to try and pick out. I want to try and have just a suggestion of the red lights there, because that's what the real thing looks like. The real thing looks ostensibly black at the rear, but where it catches the light, you can just see a little bit of transparent red lenses in there. So to do that, I'm going to use the trusty old clear red, and that applied over the black should just give me that nice. Well, the black and this sort of little faint bits of silver that I picked out should just give me the suggestion of it being a very, very dark tinted red rear light unit, which is what the real thing would look like. It might seem daft making the backlights realistic on a car that's still got its ridiculous livery, but this is meant to make up for the fact that there isn't a kind of like a tutorial video on doing headlights. This is still lights, all right. It's backlights instead, but it's still lights. And it's not just that, but it's the kind of unusual backlight that won't come up on very many cars, and that if I actually did a tutorial on rear lights, that probably wouldn't come up. So it's kind of like a bonus, good thing out of a bad, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I just thought it'd be a good opportunity to show how to do these rear light lenses on cars that have got very heavily tinted backlights where you can just about see the red through it, which tends to be cars from like anything from like the early to mid 80s up to probably the early 90s, and then it just seemed to disappear, all that sort of thing. So those tiny little lights at the front, those tiny little orange lights that I picked out at the front, which I'm now about 60-70% sure probably are the indicators. I did them in silver just to give them like a kind of reflective lens, so to speak. And now I've just gone over with some Tamiya orange clear, just to actually make them look like indicators. And they're nice and straight. And look, the backlights, they've got that little suggestion of red, like they're supposed to have. So unlike the ill-fated attempt at doing the Porsche lights, this hasn't really gone too bad at all. But we're not going to leave it there. Part of my plan, had I drilled this open and stripped the paint and done it as a full thing, part of my plan was to make it kind of two-tone, like the lower half a different colour. Because we're not drilling the casting and we're not stripping the paint, that's not really something that we can do. However, Corgi have very handily assembled this in such a way that the base plate does form like a lower section to the body, so you can paint that a different colour and give the impression that like just the very lower part, not really half, not even maybe a third, that the lower third is a different colour. Now, again, because we're not taking it apart, there's no point taking any risks. The silver paint pen is absolutely fine for this sort of work. Again, it all depends on what type you get. I don't mean that there's any specific funny specification, I just mean get a decent one. Don't get one that comes in a pack of 3 others for £1. Just get one that's three or four pounds maybe. That will last you well. I mean, this one I've got's been going 2 years now, and it's still absolutely fine. That's what you'll get if you just pay that little tiny bit more, really. I did go over the black plastic with a fine sanding pad just to get rid of if there was any rough edges to it, or any like little nibbles that old plastic tends to have in it. But also give the paint a good key. We're not going to be lacquering the paint or anything like that. It's only just to give it this little bit of a silver lower half. And then I'm using the same pen. I mean, it might have been. I'd probably say to somebody who hasn't really done anything like this before, or not done it much, to use a finer tip, like the one that I picked out the little emblem on the back with for this. But because I'm obviously getting cocky because I've done it for a while, so I just think I can pick out these tiny little marker lights on the side of the body with like a pen that's got a big fat fibre tip like that. But bully for me, but. Like I say, if you're a beginner at this, I would use a finer tip. So we've got the marker lights picked out on the side, on the front and rear at the sides, and we're getting out the cocktail stick now. So all of a sudden need a cocktail stick, not Mr. Confident using his big thick tip. Orange for the front ones and red for the rear ones, of course. So the thing I'll say about these is these details, they might be tiny. Like millimeter long, if that, but they're absolutely worth taking the time on. And if you make a mistake, just get rid of what you've put on. Usually when the paint's still wet, they'll probably come off with a wet cotton bud without damaging the paintwork, or you might have to put a little bit of polish on or something like that, but you can usually get it off quite easily. So if it doesn't look great when you first do it, just get rid of it, do it again. Like I say, it's worth spending the time, because as tiny as these details might be, they are the difference between getting them right. Is the difference between the car actually having a bit of a look of realism about it and looking like a toy car that's got clown makeup on, because that's what it looks like if you put big splodges on where there should be like little tiny lights. So it's so worth taking the time to actually pick out these details and get them as tiny as they are. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny little oblong of metal that they've picked out on the casting. So you just want a tiny, tiny oblong of silver and a tiny, tiny, tiny oblong of red on top of that. We're just going around now and just tidying up one or two areas. I think there must have just been a little bit of silver that bled through onto the black grills at the front, the black nostrils, so to speak, which I can't take credit for because they were part of the casting. And the rear end, what I'm doing now, because I'm confident that it's completely dry, I've got some completely transparent Tamiya, the Tamiya Clear, and I'm just sealing everything in. So the black that I put on, the red, the black, the little bit of silver, the red. The only thing I'm not going over with the clear is that tiny little Pontiac crest in the middle. It's just not worth it. It might obscure it. It might dull it. No, I'm not. To say it's such a tiny little thing, I did spend a long time picking that out neatly. So all I'm doing, either sides of where that crest is, I'm just going over the light lenses, because The most recent thing they've got on them is the Tamiya Red Clear. The Tamiya Red Clear won't be dissolved or disrupted by just normal Tamiya Clear. And then I just blue tacked it to a box just to keep the back end upright so it could set without running and dripping down to the back bumper. So this is what we started with, if you remember. So, and we haven't had to take it apart or do any spray painting or anything, and this is what we've ended up with. The only other thing that I've really done that I didn't already mention was the I did mention it on the previous videos, but after the tyres were put on, the O-rings, once all the sanding was done and the paint was dry, whatever, you just go around each of the actual black tyre walls with some Tamiya Clear just to shine them up a bit. But it's made quite a difference, and we haven't had to do anything risky or messy or involving any expensive equipment or anything like that. I didn't even need to go into a well ventilated area, or I could have done that. I could have done this while somebody was sat near me having the dinner, and it wouldn't have disturbed them. And again, as with a lot of the videos that I do, this was more or less real time. Alright, add some extra time on because I only showed one wheel getting done, so take that time and add another 3 of those on. Which is probably cancelled out by the fact that I've padded the end of the video out with several minutes of just like this, just filming the car in different lights and different angles and stuff, which I think is important. There's no point in doing all this and then not really showing you what the end thing looks like. But the whole video weighs in at about just over 17 minutes, so let's just call it 70. That's how long this takes. It's 17 minutes. No. This doesn't always have to be taking something that's absolutely destroyed or wrecked or hilariously bad looking and giving it this ugly duckling transformation into something absolutely beautiful. Sometimes it's just a case of taking something that has already got appeal, because it's not as though I didn't like this as it was. It was still, a bit of a time capsule, a bit of a piece of history. All I've done is taken it and preserved it as it is and just added some extra appeal to it, or certainly some extra appeal as far as I'm concerned, to me. But most importantly, I've got out of drilling 2 rivets, 2 hard-looking rivets, and I've got out of having to prep a body for painting as well. And I think Roy J, the guy of the 1980s Schweppes adverts, I think he'd be, if he could see this now, he'd be quite pleased with what I'd done. As always, thanks for watching.